Welcome everyone to our video lesson for Thursday, January 14th and Friday, January 15th. In this lesson, we went over the rock cycle. So to dive right in, we started with a warm-up. I asked you to think back to middle school. I believe it's around 7th grade that you last had Earth Sciences, and you went over the rock cycle back then. So I asked you, what are some of the ways that we make new rocks? And as a bonus question, what are those different types of rocks called? I'm not going to go over the answer to the warm-up right now in the video lesson because we actually cover it again in our lesson. I just want to see how much did people remember, get us thinking about the lesson. Your homework this weekend, the most important thing is that you have a new checkpoint. Your rock cycle solutions and sinkhole checkpoint has been open for you to start taking. You have one attempt right now, so do your best. Next week, we will unlock your second attempt for you. So if you don't like your first grade, if you do not get an A on your first attempt, please come and see us during the student support period. We are more than happy to talk to you about your test answers, help you see where you can get the answers from your work. How did you answer it wrong? Why might this be almost right? So we'd love to chat with you. We'd love to help you out. The other part of your homework is to read the next gizmo. Next week, we're going to be working on the solubility and temperature gizmo, and some of our classes are very short because of the half day for the inauguration. So I want everyone to have read the gizmo, and I would really, really like it if you already finished the first page. It's 4 pages total. If you want to, you can come to class completely prepared with it finished, but I would really appreciate if you did that warm-up and the gizmo warm-up just so we can dive right into it. So after the warm-up, we dove right into our content today. We had a rock cycle gizmo that we worked on together as a class, and then we summarized it together in our notes. So in your module, you have this worksheet and a link to our gizmo website, explorelearning.com. I should always remind you that you do need to be logged in with your account whenever you're working on your gizmos. You can always send me an email. I'm able to look up your usernames and your passwords. So first we start with our prior knowledge questions. What happens to lava after it erupts from a volcano? All of these I had you guys answer because you guys kind of know all these questions already. So lava, after it exits a volcano, it cools into rocks. That's how islands like Hawaii get larger and larger. Next, how does rock turn into soil? Rock turns into soil by being broken down by erosion and weathering. It breaks into small pebbles, smaller stones. It makes soil. Then the Mississippi River carries tons of tiny rock fragments called sediments every year into the Gulf of Mexico. What do you think will happen to these sediments after a few million years? Well, the answer to that is that it's going to be compacted into sedimentary rock after a few million years. So then you need to open up the gizmo and take a look at it, but I also have a smaller size picture of it here in the document. So over millions of years, rocks are broken down and transformed into other rocks. The rock cycle gizmo illustrates the different transformations that make up the rock cycle. So before we actually worked with our gizmo, we explored and looked at the image. So just from the image itself, it asks which types of rocks are shown. Well, if you look carefully enough, you can see that over here, it says extrusive igneous rocks. We have intrusive igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks. It's kind of hard to see on this image, but when you open up your gizmo, it's very easy to see. And then we have sedimentary rocks. So then it says that magma, molten liquid rock, is under the Earth's surface. Based on the image, how do you think magma turns into extrusive rock? So extrusive igneous rock, we all agreed, takes place or is formed above the Earth's surface. When you double click on extrusive igneous rock, we found that we were correct. That is what happened. After the gizmo warm-up questions, we moved on to the only activity in this gizmo. We made sure to click the Start Again button to make sure we reset it. And the question we're answering here is, what is the rock cycle? So our first action item is that we need to observe. And it tells us that a cycle is a path with the same start and end. And we're being asked to create a rock cycle with this gizmo. So it tells us to click on magma, and it asks what temperature or how hot is magma. So right here we can see that magma, liquid rock, is typically around 1000 degrees Celsius. All of our answers, it just tells us where to go, and we get our answers from right up here. The next question, click on crystallization below ground. What kind of rock is formed when magma cools below the surface? So if I click on crystallization below ground, our rock is now intrusive igneous rock. When the magma cools below the surface, intrusive igneous rock, such as granite and diorite, will form. Next, we were asked to click on exposure and weathering. What forms when rocks break down? So we click on exposure and weathering, and the rock is now soil. The soil is what forms when rocks are exposed to rain, ice, and the action of plants. They gradually break down into smaller particles such as cobbles, pebbles, sand, silt, and clay. Next, we've been asked to click on erosion and deposition, which also is the only option we have here. And we've been asked, in what ways are sediments transported? So the rock is now sediments. Sediments are transported by wind, rivers, or glaciers, and are usually deposited into lakes or the ocean. Next, we've been asked to click on lithification and compaction. Lithification is the hardening into rock. So what kind of rock is formed from sediments? So I click here. The rock is now sedimentary rock. Sediments settle and become sedimentary rock, often over the course of millions of years. 3/4 of the dry land on Earth is covered by sedimentary rock. Now we've been asked to click on increased temperature and pressure, and we've been asked what kind of rock is formed. The rock is now metamorphic rock. Geological processes such as folding and faulting can increase heat and pressure and cause rocks to undergo physical and chemical changes. Rocks created this way are called metamorphic rocks. And then the last step for this cycle that we've now built is to click on melt. So what happens or what is formed when we melt metamorphic rock? The rock is now magma. So we've now ended at the same place that we began. We started with magma, and now we've ended with magma. So the next question is to describe. Select the Path tab. What are the steps in this rock cycle? So I click here on Path, and here is the path that we took. So in my document, I wrote each one with a line in between them, with a little dash, a little minus sign in between them. So I had magma, dash, intrusive igneous rock, dash, soil, dash, sediments, dash, sedimentary rock, dash, metamorphic rock, dash, magma. Now, after we did this rock cycle together, I gave everyone in class 5 minutes to hit start again and to make their own rock cycles. Now, I don't have any examples for you of your own rock cycles, but if you missed class, I highly recommend that you do open up this gizmo and you work through it. You find your own paths. I say a good path needs to have at least 3 steps in between your starting and final form. So make sure you start somewhere. You can start at magma, you could start at soil, you could start at a type of rock, anywhere you want. And then make sure you go at least 3 more places before you get back to where you began. There really aren't any correct or incorrect answers as long as you use those choices that the gizmo gives you. After I gave you guys 5 minutes to make your own rock cycles, we then transitioned over to the notes. Now, the next part of the gizmo worksheet is to make a rock cycle. But I actually just realized yesterday on Thursday that I can actually have you guys annotate over images in Google Docs. But that being said, I've also heard some feedback about some technical issues, so I'm not going to have you guys do that until I know how to solve those technical issues. So I gave you guys this Rock Cycle Notes Google Slides. Much easier for us to write on top of and annotate on top of. So if we go to our first page, or really our second page in the document, we have a finished version of the rock cycle from the Gizmo worksheet. Now we filled this in together, but this helps you chart any possible path in the rock cycle. So if I start as magma, I have a few different places I can go. I can crystallize into igneous rock. I can go into intrusive or extrusive igneous rock, either way. Those are really my only choices if I start at magma. If I have igneous rock, I've got 3 different options. I can remelt back into magma. I can increase its temperature and pressure and be changed into metamorphic rock. Or I can be exposed to the elements and be weathered and turn into soil. Notice every type of rock, so igneous, metamorphic, sedimentary, all have those same 3 choices. They can be melted, they can be weathered, or they can be changed under increased temperature and pressure. I can start anywhere and go through any of those 3 experiences. The things that kind of stand out is to get to igneous rock, I have to go through that one side step of magma first. I need to stop at that station before I go to igneous. If I want to go to sedimentary, there are 2 stops in that path. I need to be exposed and weathered to turn into soil, and then my soil needs to erode and be deposited as sediments, and then I become sedimentary rock. So once I'm soil, my only choice is sediments. Once I'm sediments, my only choice is to sedimentary rock. And once I melt into magma, my only choice is to igneous rock. But once I'm at a rock, I can go to any of those 3 options. Now, in your quiz questions, you have questions with this rock cycle, and you also have some questions that use this rock cycle. I feel that this is the more complex of the rock cycle images, so this is why this is why I chose this one to go over in our notes today. I feel that if you are more comfortable, or if we spend more time on the more complex version, you'll be even more comfortable with the easier, more simple version. The next and last page is just another quick recap of our 3 different rock types and how they're formed. First, I have igneous rocks, which are formed by the cooling of magma or lava, which is liquid, into solid rocks. So some examples I pointed out in class is basalt, pumice, obsidian, granite. Obsidian is that very shiny, very sharp type of rock that's formed from volcanoes. Before we were able to really temper steel into making good scalpels and knives, obsidian was actually used for its almost surgical sharpness and precision. And then we also have a picture of pumice stone, also another extrusive igneous rock. It's formed when volcanoes explode. There's pockets of carbon dioxide, make it a very Swiss cheese-like consistency of air pockets. It's sometimes used in soap. There is one brand of soap, I believe it's called lava soap, that actually incorporates it in the soap itself. Then some people use pumice stones to exfoliate. Next, we have metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rocks are formed when older rocks are buried deep inside the Earth's crust and are subjected to extreme heat and pressure over time, and then it is transformed. So I have marble and slate as 2 examples of metamorphic rocks. Marble, you've seen before in any sort of fancy building, or maybe in your own house. Maybe you have some marble floors in your house or marble countertops in your kitchen. And then I also have slate. Slate is sometimes used on our roofs. It's also what we used to use for chalkboards. And last but definitely not least, we have sedimentary rocks. They are formed when broken bits of other rocks, so sediments, are deposited on top of each other and compacted over millions of years. So I have examples of sandstone and shale. And I've got an image here of sandstone. The really interesting thing about sedimentary rocks is they tell us a lot about our planet's past. You can notice in that image I shared, you can see the layers. You can see the different layers in those rocks that can tell us a lot about what happened in that ancient riverbed or ocean floor and how it formed. But that's what we did in class today. We just reviewed the rock cycle. Please remember to take your first attempt of the checkpoint over this weekend. As all of our other checkpoints are, it is open note. So please use your sinkhole reading that was due today, by the way. Use your solutions notes that we filled out earlier in the week, and use your rock cycle gizmo and rock cycle notes to help you as well. We didn't actually finish the entire rock cycle gizmo worksheet in class, but if you don't do so well on your first attempt at that checkpoint, then I really encourage you go back to that worksheet and finish it. It just gives you a hands-on way to explore what we're quizzing you on. Not to mention a lot of our questions were taken from the gizmo, from the style of the gizmo and what the gizmo has you looking at. Well, until I see you guys on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, I hope everyone makes good choices and stays safe.